The ANC is facing competition in two of its strongholds in KZN. It's in the latest round of local by-elections that were held Wednesday in KZN, the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape. Well, I've dragged in, always willingly low, is a by-elections analyst, Wayne Sussman, to help us make sense of all it. Hello, Wayne. Good to have you back with us again. Let's just bring everyone up to speed, because I think, unless you follow this very closely, most people wouldn't have known there was a by-election. So where are we talking about specifically?
Sure. So, as you said, there were by-elections in 3 provinces, but there were 4 by-elections in KwaZulu-Natal which were telling, because we expect the IFP to do well in rural northern KwaZulu-Natal. But we had by-elections in the southern part of KwaZulu-Natal, which is Jacob Zuma's gift to the ANC. He really consolidated that area, so the area of KwaZulu-Natal towards the Eastern Cape. The provincial capital in Pietermaritzburg, the Msunduzi municipality, and then another area close by called Umshwati in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands. So 3 quite different areas, and the IFP overperforming in every single area.
By how much? What are the numbers telling us?
So they won a ward off the ANC in the township of Sweetwaters, which is in Msunduzi in the provincial capital, Pietermaritzburg. I want to remind the viewers that the ANC has historically done better in Pietermaritzburg than eThekwini, Durban. It's where the second most amount of voters are in KwaZulu-Natal. And in 2016, the ANC got over 66% in this ward. The IFP got about 11%. In this particular by-election, the IFP getting 57% and the ANC on 39%. Wow. The IFP taking votes from the ANC and from the EFF.
I was about to ask, when it comes to these election numbers, and many people will, of course, remember you from local government elections and last national elections, it's one thing to just get more votes, but you've got to follow the voter trail. You've got to figure out, did they take votes away, or did the other party simply lose votes to the IFP? And that's why that's such an important comment as well. So why is this so important in the grand scheme of things? Because now we're getting quickly into elections mode this early in the year for next year's elections. How telling is this ahead of next year?
Correct. So it's a lot to do with local government now, but also about 2024. And when you have, as I said, results coming in from 3 different parts of KwaZulu-Natal, 3 different types of areas, and the IFP is overperforming, it says that KwaZulu-Natal will certainly be a battleground province, and the ANC runs the very significant risk of falling below 50%. So we know that Western Cape and Gauteng are always going to be fascinating provinces to watch, without a shadow of a doubt. When we look at the recent by-election trends and the results on Wednesday in KwaZulu-Natal, KwaZulu-Natal is a province which the ANC would be greatly concerned about.
Yeah, they should be, because it's the battleground, as you say, but also it's being referred to as the kingmaker province in the past as well. I know we've spoken about KZN. Can we just quickly touch on Western Cape and Eastern Cape as well, because by-elections there, I understand.
Correct. So let's first go to the Eastern Cape. So very poor results for the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. But we go to Lusikisiki, Nguza Hill municipality, between near Port St. John's in the OR Tambo district. The ANC way overperforming. They went from 66, 67% to over 80% of the vote. So whilst they had a bad day in KwaZulu-Natal, the ANC's returns in the Eastern Cape remain good, and that province is safe ANC country, and one of the areas where the ANC won't worry about provincially, but will know nationally in next year's elections will pump up their numbers. In the Western Cape, we saw the DA hold a seat in Stellenbosch. They had a comfortable win. The ACDP made some inroads there, not good, which was interesting for me. The party, good, didn't make inroads there. So the battle for second, what I was watching, and I'd be concerned if I was good, because I see a pattern of results emerging now where less and less people are seeing them as the alternative to the DA in the Western Cape.
You have to be careful how we use the word good these days, but it sounds like it's part of a sentence. So it's the good party that you're talking about. So Western Cape, let's just circle back there for a second, and then we're going to come to the Eastern Cape, and I'm going to expand that onto the presidency and the fight for the presidency within the ANC. But we'll get there in a moment. So Western Cape looks like it's still going to be the one province that the ANC, despite everything, is probably just not going to make any sort of movement into that's significant.
Correct. There was the by-election in Stellenbosch. I want to answer your question by giving you some data here. It included in Stellenbosch the area of Jamestown, which is a majority coloured area. The ANC getting 1% of the vote there. if they are going to have a chance of coming back in the Western Cape, it'll be with a coalition of parties like the Patriotic Alliance and the EFF. But they won't have the premier there next year. You can't have 1% of the vote in a coloured area, in a voting district, and think that you can win back the province. The ANC have big problems in the city of Cape Town and the Cape Winelands district. So I would still favour the DA there. If they did fall under 50%, they could go to a party like the Freedom Front to form a coalition.
And it's those coalitions we're going to talk about now, but I want to come back to where I was going with the Eastern Cape as well. So how does the ANC then begin to capitalise on that for the elections, knowing that possibly they're not going to have the support base in KZN that you spoke about as well? Is there anything that could shift in the Eastern Cape between these Wednesday by-elections, Wednesday past, and next year? Do you foresee any big shifts between now and, we imagine, elections next year in May, thereabouts?
So provincially, the ANC's won the Eastern Cape. If it's Oscar Mabayani, he'll be returning as Premier next year. The key thing is, particularly when we saw the ANC's poor results in 2021 in the local government elections, getting under 50%. If the ANC is at risk at 50%, they need provinces like the Eastern Cape and Limpopo. These are the bastions of ANC support, where there's support largely held in the local government elections. We see in Eastern Cape by-elections the ANC not just holding and maintaining that support, but growing that support. Those provinces, they'll need their supporters there to come out in droves, because that is the path to remaining in power. That is the path to making sure that the ANC potentially don't need coalition partners after next year's elections, if voters in the Eastern Cape and Limpopo come out in droves and vote for the ANC again.
And here's where I was going to take us next, as I start saying goodbye to you as well, as I want to just unpack this coalitions issue, because I'm sure you've been asked this before. I've certainly had it in private conversations with the people. I've had it here on air. How concerned should we be as a country that we could be heading to a coalition national government? If based on what we're seeing in Tshwane, if based on what we're seeing in Johannesburg, if that's the example that we're going by, I'm deeply concerned about a national version of that kind of coalition chaos. If I'm not being too harsh, that's what it is.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but just very briefly, it's not just that they're coalitions, it's the fact that you have a party with 3 seats in the mayoral position in Johannesburg, you have a party with 1 seat in the mayoral seat in Tshwane. These are results. No one could forecast that when they went to go vote in November 2021, that these tiny parties would be sitting in the literal pound seat. Remember that there are 400 seats in Parliament, 270 seats in Johannesburg. If a party of 3 seats can be in the pound seat in a 270-seat chamber, then quite possibly, remember, it's easier to get a seat in Parliament. Maybe if the ANC falls just under 50%, there's a party you and I have never heard of. We're going to say, if it can be done in Johannesburg, if it can be done in Tshwane, with my 1 seat, I can maybe become the president or the deputy president after 2024. It's going to be very, very interesting to watch.
Very worrying to watch as well, because if you look at the power plays at a provincial level, or at least at a city level, and that's just to take control of council, or to be the speaker, or to be the mayor, and it's not to belittle those positions. Imagine the kind of infighting and the sort of negotiations if, for example, as you say, you've got the deputy presidency position or the presidency position of the country up for grabs.
100%, and that's why we desperately need coalition maturity. Brett Herron from the Good Party wrote a good op-ed this week on how we can look better at coalitions going forward. We have to have a long-term orientation. It can't just be about short-term being at the trough, extracting whatever we can in the short term. We have to do this for the future of the country. We have to do it for the future of democracy, build better, more stable coalitions.
Yeah, Wayne, this is why it's always wonderful to have you come in and sit with me. Wayne Sussman, by-elections analyst of what's happened with the by-elections on Wednesday. 3 provinces, KZN, Western Cape and Eastern Cape. And I don't know where Wayne manages to keep this kind of data when he starts narrowing down into these small areas, just outside Pietermaritzburg, for example, also down in the Western Cape. And that's why it's always wonderful to have Wayne. He gets granular, so you understand why it's important, where it actually happened, and what it means for you as well. So once again, my thanks to Wayne Sussman, by-elections analyst, and of course elections analyst, as he looked ahead and just gave his thoughts just for now on what 2024 could look like.